Hello, everybody. This is my very first Facebook Live, so bear with me as I kind of work my way through this. But for those of you who don't know or who are just kind of tuning into our page, my name is Lindsey Funtick, and I am the coordinator of volunteer ministries at Ashland First United Methodist. So it's been an honor to walk alongside Pastor Allen as he's been leading our congregation through just this really surreal season, and I hope that this finds you well, that this finds you not just tolerating social distancing, but maybe even thriving in it, that you have been able to see glimpses of the Lord in the midst of it. So stay healthy and stay safe and stay inside if you can. So I just kind of wanted to get on and share a few of my thoughts. I'm calling this my Sabbath sign-off because even though I'm not officially signing off for Sabbath just yet, I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on Sabbath. And so on Thursday nights, just kind of in my normal routine, as I'm trying to kind of keep some semblance of that, as we all are, Thursday nights at 9 p.m., I go dark, and I am able to, I'm lucky, I recognize that, able to take a Sabbath from 9 p.m. Thursday to 9 p.m. Friday, and that's a time in which I don't do things for the church. I really don't even do chores. I kind of just rest and allow myself to connect with the Lord and to just kind of refuel for the week ahead. So, often that includes such things as cappuccinos at a coffee shop and writing poetry and reading novels and other good books on theology and whatnot, and sometimes baking, sometimes a nap, whatever strikes my fancy that day. So in all of this craziness and the pandemic that we are currently facing, it's gotten me thinking a lot about Sabbath. I'm currently auditing a class at the seminary where I graduated last May, just can't stay away. So I'm taking Old Testament theology with Dr. Van Hawk, highly recommend. And my friend Karen, who is extremely wise and prophetic, during our first Zoom meeting class, she said that the whole world has been forced into Sabbath rest, something along those lines. And I've been thinking a lot about that and what that really kind of means for us right now. And I think that first, it means that it is time to slow down. That in all of this, let me be clear, I'm not saying that the Lord caused this pandemic. I think that illness is a part of the brokenness of the fall, and that the Lord is the one who is bringing about healing and restoration and redemption. So that's his perfect kingdom, and we see glimpses of that as we're on our way there. So just let me be clear about that. But I do think that the Lord uses times like this for our good and for his glory. So when I think about slowing down in this season, it's kind of, as Karen said, it's forced. But if we are working, we're working from home. Most of us, at least. For you essential workers, thank you so much for being out and about in the midst of this, especially healthcare workers. But this is a time in which we are not able to produce in quite the way that we normally do, and that really rubs against our Western sensibility of, like, I've got to grind, I've got to be the best, I've got to work, I've got to produce. And now is just not the time in which we're able to really do that. And so I think that the Lord is really using this as a time in which we can be slow. And an example is that I always try to do a devotional in the morning, but during this time of quarantine, because I'm not trying to rush out the door and make my commute, I'm able to wake up, go and get coffee, be able to have breakfast with my husband, and sit down and really dig into scripture in a way that just kind of during normal working weeks, working hours, I'm not able to. So we can really harness things like that and see this time of slowing down as a way to take a break. And even if we're still working, the mentality of productivity has to pause. And I really think that Jesus is going to use that, because we're not defined by our productivity. We are defined by the fact that we're made in the image of God and beloved by God. So take this time to slow down. I've also been thinking about intentional connection. Part of Sabbath, or the big thing with Sabbath, is reconnecting with the Lord and being refueled for the week of work ahead, because life is a balance of work and rest. And if God himself had to rest on the seventh day, or chose to rest on the seventh day after creating, then the world can spin on without us for a little bit too. So while we're safely tucked away, we can trust that he's still moving. But when it comes to intentional connection, we're not going to run into people like we normally would. We're not going to have our coworkers and our friends just kind of right there. So I think that in addition to connecting with the Lord, this time of Sabbath rest can be a time of connecting with each other, and doing so intentionally. So I am not going to run into my friends, but I can call them on Zoom or FaceTime. We are not going to just be able to gather as a faith community on our own, but we can have Bible studies online, and we can have prayer groups and coffee and conversation with Alan and Lindsey on Saturday morning. So I think that this time of isolation is really a time in which we can answer the call for more intentional connection, and to be more in depth with each other, because it's not going to come easy, but it's really worth it. I think that, again, I just want to kind of preach to myself, but shout to the rooftops that you are not defined by your productivity. The world does grind on, and I think that while we work from home, I'm working from home, and we do our best to be faithful in stewarding that time. I think that also this is a really difficult thing, but we can surrender that need to be productive, and for that need to have something to show for our work and somebody to see it. So I pray that we're all able to kind of like lean into this and just let ourselves breathe a little bit. It's not rise and grind. We're sequestered, and there's kind of something beautiful in that. And I think that in all of this, Sabbath rest is about renewal. And I think that the Lord is using this really difficult season for our renewal. Personally, I think he's going to meet us in ways that we have not been met. But I think also it's world renewal, and the Lord is doing a new thing. We can't always see it. There's a lot of scary things happening, and it's a time of anxiety and fear. And those are all very natural and normal. So feel no shame in that, but also know that he makes springs run in the wasteland. And so part of our Sabbath rest, as the world has been kind of moved into that, is to rest in the fact that the Lord is good, and he's doing something good and new. So cling tightly to that. And so Sabbath can look a lot of different ways. And like I said, I recognize that I'm lucky that I can take a 24-hour Sabbath, and that I've got a wonderful faith community and church where I work that recognizes the need for that, and I embrace that, and I'm so grateful for it. But if you're not able to take a 24-hour Sabbath, if you can't sign off completely, I encourage you to take what you can. So whether it's 24 hours or an hour-long devotional, or 15 minutes in which you're like, okay, Jesus, meet me here. I'm setting aside this time. Whatever that looks like in your life, I just pray that you do it. Now is the time to do it. Now is the time to get into that routine. So for me, Sabbath rest, like I said, often includes coffee and good words, read or written. But also I encourage you some suggestions. Take some time in the morning. Go ease into your day slowly, because most of us aren't having to make our commute. So make yourself a cup of coffee and sit down and enjoy it. I pray that you would be able to, well, get outside. The advent of spring is here, and I'm so grateful for that because sunshine, I'm sitting by this window and there's sun shining. And so get outside and take a deep breath and allow birdsong to permeate your brain, and take some time to just kind of like reorient yourself to the Creator and what He's doing. And so even in the midst of really, really difficult things, the earth is waking back up. So we can reflect on that, and that brings Sabbath rest to our souls. This is also a time I want to encourage you to try different prayer practices. So if you normally, sit down and pray for 10 minutes, sit down and pray for 15. Or if you normally speak your prayers out loud, try journaling them. I just read a really wonderful book. I will talk to anybody about it that will let me talk about it. But it was called Creating a Life with God, The Call of Ancient Prayer Practices by Daniel Wolpert. So I recommend that if you can get your hands on it. But if you're also looking for some different ideas for how to practice prayer differently in this kind of set apart time, reach out to us. We've got resources that we can help you, and we can be happy to pray with you, pray alongside you. So just try new things in that way as well. And ultimately, I know that it can be kind of, I've heard a lot of parents who are struggling right now because they've had to all of a sudden become homeschool teachers and things like that. But I encourage you to just relish in the community that's around you. If you have a spouse, love hard on that spouse. If you've got kids, just relish the fact that your kids are right there. Part of Sabbath is reconnecting with the Lord, but I think it also has to do with reconnecting with our community. So never before have you been able to, I'll speak for myself, never before have I been able to work from home with my husband all day. And I am not tired of him. He might say something different, but it's just been a gift to be home with him, and that's part of that rest. And ultimately, just you do you. Whatever rejuvenates you, whatever helps you connect with Jesus. If you need to dance around the room in the midst or between sending emails, if you need to bake, if you need to, whatever you do that brings you into the presence of God, do it. Now is the time, do it. So these are just kind of my thoughts on Sabbath, and we're all kind of working toward what is normal, or we're working on having some semblance of normality in our days. But I think the break from normality can be seen as a gift, and the ways in which the Lord can teach us about rest and about being with Him and being with one another and stepping back from the daily grind as we have known it up until this point is a good thing. So harness that. We're all just doing our best, but I just encourage you to lean in. Know that, like, it's hard. I want to feel more productive than I do. But that's not who I am. That's not who you are. And so we're set aside for such a time as this. So love the Lord, love one another, and may He bless you and keep you. If you try to text me after 9 p.m. tonight, I probably won't respond because I'm going to be connecting with Jesus in the ways in which gives my soul life. So love you all. I pray for you daily. I think about you all the time. And I just trust that the Lord is taking care of you and that we will see one another again soon. Take care and be well.